Mr. Scott, I wanted to ask you, one of the things that was included in the reconciliation effort is something called ZEHA, or the Zero Emissions Home Act. And what that did is created a structure for point of sale rebates for all of these items that you on your various television shows install all the time. So say typically what happens is somebody's air conditioner or their furnace goes out when you least want it to, when your in-laws are over and you're high demand, and you want something like now, not 2 months from now, right? And so the way we structured that was to say that we would levelize the cost with a rebate and do it at the point of sale. So you don't have to wait until you're filing your taxes and then getting that back a year and a half from now. You actually get to do it in that moment when you really need your hot water heater to work, or your furnace, or your air conditioner, or if it's a heat pump, it does both things, right? So how would that change for your clients, for the kind of people looking at renovating a different way? What difference would that make to be able to access that sort of incentive in the moment as opposed to a year and a half later?
I mean, it will be immeasurably improved. So one of the biggest challenges we have is state to state. I mean, I'm a reasonably intelligent person, former Mensa inductee, and I can't figure out how the hell half of these rebates work, and incentives and tax rebates and whatnot. People just want simple. And when they need something switched at their house, they don't want to have to, go back to school and get a degree to figure out what these incentives look like. We've seen it actually on the furniture side of our business, especially with a lot of logistic and supply chain problems over COVID. Any of the retailers that managed to have inventory and were able to offer incentives for immediate delivery, the business skyrocketed for them, as opposed to people don't want to wait, 6 months for something or 2 months to wait for something. So I think having all of that complication taken away, keeping it simple, and getting it so that people can actually install these almost immediately. I know from a trades perspective, we're seeing a huge resurgence in the trades, which is amazing because they're good paying jobs. And looking at these companies are looking for a way to set themselves up for success. And part of that is being able to explain to their customer how simple it is and how quick and efficient it is to put in green technologies. So that would be very important.
Yeah, I can't agree more how important those trades jobs are in our local communities, because they're not something you can outsource. They're all built around what you're doing in your local community, capturing that economic benefit and giving economic benefits to consumers. I did find, however, that when I installed my first air source heat pump water heater, I've known my plumber for many years. They're incredibly talented folks who take their job really seriously, but it was the first time they had installed one of these. So there was a learning curve there. Now they're installing them left and right. But what do we need to do to make sure we're doing the workforce pieces of this to accelerate that transition?
Yeah, so I think for me, whenever I'm looking at any of these technologies, I want to know the pros and I want to know the cons. And really, as far as the cons go, none of these are things that can't be addressed. New technologies always take time for, not only, our inspectors from the municipality, the inspectors quite often haven't seen some of these technologies before, so they have to look at some of the literature surrounding them. But yes, the training curve is something, my hope is this will spawn a whole new industry of companies, because we know that, when technology is going to be adapted, one, when it becomes good for business, that's when you really see a huge spike and things start to happen. Well, people will definitely recognize the financial benefits of how much more efficient these systems are, how much less they cost to operate. And so naturally, there's going to be a demand built off of that. That's going to then show a lot of these trades and a lot of these companies, wow, we should invest some time in the training surrounding these technologies. And then you'll start to see all of this cascade at the same time and create a whole new green economy. So that's the exciting thing for me. We see it in solar. We've seen it in storage. We've seen another thing we have to realize is there are a lot of utility attacks on whether or not we can sell energy back to the grid, net metering. And so part of that conversation is we need to make sure that we can house and utilize all of this energy within the four walls of our homes instead of expecting that we're going to be able to sell it back to the grid. So I think we're only going to see more and more demand for these technologies, which means we're naturally going to see more of a demand in the trades and training surrounding the technologies.
Great. Ms. Johnson, one of the things that surprised me as I started going through this in my own home was just how much data there was, how many studies talking about indoor air quality. Is that something your organization's looked at? And, what is the relationship between making sure our kids either don't have asthma or at least aren't triggered into asthma attacks by the way that we're employing things like our stoves in our own homes?
Thank you for the question. I think we can think about this in two ways. One, we currently have a demonstration project that we are leading that is called Out of Gas In with Justice. And it looks at transitioning out gas appliances in 10 affordable homes and then 10 public housing units. And it is measuring the air quality in those units over a year's time of having an induction stove. And we think that we will find that there is improvement in the air quality in those homes as a result of shifting out those appliances. Now, we also think about a lot of the individuals in our communities are renters. And we do think about how we can bring these sort of economic benefits to landlords. So that very piece of legislation that you talked about would provide that same economic benefit to a landlord to be able to make these adjustments to his or her property and be able to pass that economic benefit on to tenants as well as improve the air quality in their homes.